What's going on, Mutha Truckers? Welcome to Mutha Trucker News. Email us at muthatruckernews@gmail.com. If you're watching this for the first time, this is everything pertaining to truck drivers, and definitely in the perspective of a truck driver, which will be interesting for the viewers that are watching this that aren't truck drivers and are following the new budget bill that just passed, barely passed. And we want to talk about that and why I believe that there are truck drivers that are going to be in approval of this versus not, right? Before we get into that, we've had a truck driver send this to us about a missing driver, Wallace Walker, age 33, height 5'8", stocky build, last known contact Illinois, late 2024, black male with long dreadlocks and beard. All known contact by multiple family members is going unanswered. Last known company driven for has been contacted by family, but with no results. If seen or know of his whereabouts, contact state police and us at MTDAN with info. This has been going viral, and this truck driver deserves it. We'll call this segment "Age is Just a Number." So just definitely want to highlight this again for the people that don't know who this is. This is Candy Bass. She's a truck driver with 5 decades of experience behind the wheel. Bass has 6 million accident-free miles and earned the Women in Trucking Driver of the Year award in 2023. She recently just went viral again because someone filmed her while she was doing some work. And so age is just a number. And for anybody that's in trucking, that's been doing it as long as Candy has, all I have to say is 1,000% props to all these drivers out there, and major props for Candy Bass for going viral once again for something positive. Okay, so the big one that we need to talk about today is definitely President Trump's budget bill. And so from this, 217 yays from Republicans and 1 nay, with the Democratic Party pretty much all saying 212 nays. So it was 217 to 213. This is going to Senate. Definitely comment down below. I know you guys will definitely tell me your opinion on this, and I'm here for it. The reason why this bill matters is because it says here, this bill allows Congress to use a special process called reconciliation. Normally, most bills need 60 votes to pass in the Senate, but through reconciliation, some bills can pass with a simple majority. Since Republicans hold a 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, they're using this process to pass major financial changes without needing votes from the Democratic Party. So this is a big part here. 450 billion tax cuts every year from 2025 to 2034, adding up to 4.5 trillion over 10 years. Annual deficits amount for the government spends beyond what it collects, ranging from 1.76 trillion to 2.2 trillion per fiscal year, right? This is crazy, right? Planned government spending for different federal agencies, increase in national debt limit of 4 trillion, projected U.S. national debt to rise from 35.46 trillion on 10/1/2024 to 55.57 trillion by 9/30/2034, a total increase of about 20 trillion. This bill also requires different committees to propose spending cuts by March 27th of 2025. So here are the changes that are the big ones, right? Cut in spending in agriculture, 230 billion, education workforce, 330 billion. So energy and commerce, 880 billion, financial service, 1 billion, natural resource, 1 billion, oversight and government reform, 50 billion, and transportation and infrastructure, 10 billion. So mud truckers, I would say this: if you are watching this and you are not a truck driver, you might not understand where this is coming from, but truck drivers, they want their diesel trucks. They can't afford electric trucks. The infrastructure is not here for it. And basically, the administration before was just shoving it down the blue collar workers' throats, right? So I believe that truck drivers are going to be very happy about this part right here, is cutting all that zero emission and electric charging, because they just know that, for one, the trucks are double the price, right? So it just doesn't make sense there. And number two, the cost that it would take to electrify America we're just not there yet, right? So, from a truck driver's perspective, I believe that they're going to be very much for this part of the bill, with the tax challenge that everybody's worried about here, right? It says the tax cuts President Trump wants cost $8 trillion over 10 years, but this bill only allows for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. So where's this going to come from? They're hoping that extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would be $4.6 trillion, not taxing overtime pay, $300 billion. So, this is where President Trump was talking about, for taxing for tips, overtime pay, lowering the corporate tax rate, U.S. made products for $150 billion, removing the SALT cap for $1.2 trillion, ending tax on Social Security income, $1.5 trillion. Right? Since the total cost of these tax cuts is $3.5 trillion higher than what the bill allows, Congress will have to make tough choices. So that $880 billion tax cut they want to do to Energy and Commerce Committee, this is what they do. Okay, it says they have the broadest jurisdiction of any authorized committee in Congress. It legislates on a wide variety of issues, including healthcare, including mental health, substance abuse, health insurance, and including Medicare and Medicaid. So this is where the Democratic Party is like, they're definitely going to cut Medicare and Medicaid. Now, I've been watching this, and the Republican Party is stating that they want to kick out all the people in Medicare and Medicaid that are fraudulent, that are frauding the system. They're not going to touch everybody else. But Democrats are afraid of this. So, my truckers, what are your thoughts about this? I just want to share this and let you guys know what's going on. This bill is headed to the Senate and potentially could pass because, a slight majority is Republicans, and they do not need 60 votes for this.
Hike for the average taxpayer. It will put $1,700 back into the pockets of a median family of 4 and will prevent the child tax credit from being cut in half for 40 million families. This bill doesn't take from the working class. It puts money in their pockets. And while my colleagues on the other side try to drown out these facts with tired talking points and fear-mongering, let's ask the American people directly. How does a 22% tax hike help you pay your bills? Families, how does taking $1,700 out of your pocket and cutting your child tax credit help you raise your kids? Can I get 30 seconds?
Give the gentleman 30 more seconds, please.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
It doesn't. And Republicans are working to stop those tax hikes by passing this budget resolution. President Trump was elected by the working class, and this budget will deliver on the promises he made to them. I'm very proud to support this budget resolution and urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, and I yield back.
I reserve, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's time is reserved. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Chairman, I would remind my fellow Pennsylvanian that this bill would put 3.1 million people in Pennsylvania at risk of losing Medicaid. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey, the ranking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Pallone.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes.
And I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this Republican budget resolution. Make no mistake about it. This budget will lead to millions of Americans losing their health care coverage, all so Republicans can give giant tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. The only group that wants these tax breaks is Wall Street, not the average American. Mr. Speaker, if Republicans pass this resolution today, we'll be forced to cut a minimum of nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid, our nation's largest health care program. And for those who are saying that somehow the Medicaid program has a lot of waste, let me remind us that Medicaid is the leanest federal health care program. Every independent study says that Medicaid is financially sound, the most financially sound federal health care program. The consequences of these cuts will be devastating. Medicaid provides health care to 1 in 3 Americans, nearly half of the children in the United States, and it's the largest source of funding for nursing home for seniors and people living with disabilities. This is a life-saving program for 80 million Americans. They count on it every day. And yet today, House Republicans are unnecessarily rushing forward with a budget resolution that will impose the largest health care cuts in our nation's history. Millions of people will lose their health care. But that's just the beginning. Health care prices will sharply rise. Hospitals, particularly those in underserved and rural communities, will be forced to close. So too will nursing homes. homes. Seniors will lose the care that they rely on, and doctors and nurses will be laid off. Emergency rooms will once again be overflowing as people are forced to delay care until absolutely necessary. And states will be bankrupted and forced to make painful cuts to important health care services. This is the reality, not what the Republicans are telling you. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't have to be this way. If just a few of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle take a stand today, we can stop this from happening. So I implore my Republican colleagues to think about the harm, the devastating harm that would be done to their communities if this budget resolution is adopted. Stand up. I urge my colleagues to think twice and vote no. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas.
Chairman, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from the Tar Heel State, former Speaker of the House of North Carolina and Budget Committee member, Mr. Tim Moore.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last November, the American people said enough is enough. They're tired of government waste, they're tired of rising prices, and they're tired of policies of the last administration. This budget is a critical step forward towards reining in out-of-control federal spending. To be clear, this resolution has no provisions that make cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. For those folks watching at home, read the bill. It's not in there. When Democrats vote against this today, they are voting to raise the average family of four's taxes by nearly $1,700. They're voting to raise taxes on small business, they're voting for open borders, and they're voting for higher energy costs. I'm proud to have worked with my fellow House Budget Committee members on this bill, as well as the chairman, who's done an amazing job on this, and I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on this important measure. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Texas reserves.
I reserve.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I would remind the gentleman that this bill would put 2.8 million people in North Carolina at risk of losing Medicaid. Mr. Chair, with that, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Neal.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the looting is underway. Our colleagues are running the same failed playbook of trickle-down handouts. My friend, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, said the family of four, they're going to get $1,700. Look at the tax distribution tables and what billionaires are going to get in this. That's the real issue that's in front of us on this occasion. Let me go to another point that I think is fascinating. DOGE is rummaging through your private records even as we speak. How about the following? Imagine what the Republican reaction would have been if Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, or Joe Biden said, we're going to borrow $4 trillion more for these tax cuts for the wealthiest amongst us. Don't kid yourself. Medicaid, 71 million Americans, Medicare, Social Security, the American people depend upon these issues. I'm stunned that Republicans would borrow $4 trillion to justify tax cuts for the wealthiest amongst us. And by the way, people who aren't even asking for those tax cuts. Their cuts will affect every part of American life, including those who need basic sustenance every day. $4 trillion, and look at the alignment. $1.2 trillion here for cuts, but $1.2 trillion for tax cuts. Oh, let me figure that one out. They are going to cut Medicaid to justify what it is that they want to do. There is no reason why billionaires should be getting a massive tax cut. Totally unnecessary, and in the end, that's what this legislation is about, despite their protestations. $1,700 for a family of four. Tens of millions of dollars for billionaires. That's where these tax cuts are going. I want you also to understand this. The people are watching. We're going to defend Medicare, we're going to defend Medicaid, and we're going to defend all of these entities that have made a difference in American life for average people every single day. Let me close on this note. My father had a great saying. He used to say, Jesse James at least had the respect to wear a mask. They should be wearing masks for what they're doing today. And I yield back my time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, I yield 1 minute to my friend, the gentleman from Kansas, another Budget Committee member, who had a hand in developing this fiscal framework, Mr. Ron Estes.
Gentleman from Kansas is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support for starting the process to pass one big, beautiful bill for America. For 4 years, Americans suffered from an open border, crippling inflation, massive federal spending, and burdensome regulation. On top of that, we're on the verge of increased taxes for families, workers, and small businesses if we fail to act. Our mandate is to restore and secure our nation, both physically and financially. It's critical that we pass a bill that enables us to address all of these priorities, including an extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. In my home state, Kansans will see an average of $2,200 increase in their taxes if we don't act now and we allow the tax cuts to expire. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle have made false claims about this budget resolution that will cut Social Security. As chairman of the Ways and Means Social Security Subcommittee, I want to emphasize with the strongest terms possible that this budget resolution does not do a single thing to cut Social Security. In fact, Social Security cannot be amended in the budget resolution in the budget reconciliation process. The Byrd Rule prevents consideration of reconciliation in the Senate that changes the Social Security program. I support today's budget resolution as a next step in advancing America's first policies, and with that, I yield back.